From the biblical perspective, in a Hebrew mind, a name is not just a tag that is given to an individual when they are born, but a name is essentially something that captures one's essence altogether. In one's name, from a Hebrew mind, it would be capturing where that person comes from in terms of their history to where they are. It would capture the circumstances under which they are born. It will also capture the hopes that their birth brings for the people and the family into which they are born. Hello friends, my name is Ayanda Nomake and you are at the Balanced Gospel. To those who are returning viewers, thank you for your loyalty. Continue to support us. Please remember to like, share and comment. Would love to hear from you. To those who are new, please do subscribe and likewise like, share, and we also would like to know what your thoughts are on what we are discussing on this channel. I have a question for you. I would like to know from you. What would you like to outlast your existence on this earth? What would be the most important thing that outweighs everything for you that must continue to live when you are gone? For many, it may be a bank balance. For many, it may be an empire that they've built for their legacy, riches and wealth. But from the advice of the ancient wisdom, it is one's name. Yes, a name is a precious thing to leave behind. You may have all the wealth in the world, but nothing will recover a name that has been lost through one's choices in this life. If we consider a name from the Bible perspective, Proverbs chapter 22, the verses 1, it says, "A good name is better than riches. Favor far outweighs precious metals like silver and gold." Now, that is countercultural. For many of us, we would choose wealth over a good name. But from the biblical perspective, it goes against all the culture that we know in this day and age. And we are told that a good name is better than wealth. What this means is that it does not necessarily diminish the need to build a lasting legacy from a wealth creation point of view. But what it does say to us, do not build wealth and chase riches and money at the expense of your name. You may have all the wealth in the world, but nothing will do for a name to be made good except one's character. When we are all born, we are born with natural advantages and natural disadvantages. Some advantages outweigh their disadvantages. The privileged children, benefiting from a legacy that they inherit. Sometimes it's a legacy of wealth, but certainly no good name. And others are born with disadvantages outweighing their advantages. And sometimes it may be possible that though they are born with disadvantages in terms of their circumstances, but it's possible that they inherit a good name. What is the paradox of this world in terms of a good name? Because the culture that we live in, people would do anything to be on top. They would even compromise their values, compromise their principles, compromise everything that they are in terms of their being because they want to build a position rather than a good name, a position of status than a good name. From the biblical perspective, in a Hebrew mind, a name is not just a tag that is given to an individual when they are born, but a name is essentially something that captures one's essence altogether. In one's name, from a Hebrew mind, it would be capturing where that person comes from in terms of their history to where they are. It would capture the circumstances under which they are born. It will also capture the hopes that their birth brings for the people and the family into which they are born. So when we then look at things that way, then we appreciate and understand that one's existence not only captures where you come from, but it is an introduction of hope for battles lost in the past, that in your existence, perhaps we have hope that we can overcome that which we have not been able to overcome in the past. It can also bring hope that the circumstances under which you are born, you may be born onto a strong foundation upon which you can build to get your family out of those disadvantaging circumstances. When we look from a biblical perspective in terms of what a name is, we appreciate and understand that a name is one's essence, character, value system, that which people experience when they meet you, not necessarily that which you think you have, but that which you are. In the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 7, the verses 1, Solomon the wise man continues to say here that a good name is better than precious ointment. The day of death is more important than the day of birth. What this means is that precious ointment referred to here is expensive perfume, as we would put it in our time. In other words, when a person walks into the room, even if it is a room filled with many people, but when that person walks in there, the scent and the fragrance and the weight of the smell and the fragrance that comes with this person, heads will turn even before they see that person is here. When then people become familiar with the fragrance of your expensive perfume that you put on, even before they see you when you've been in a room, whether you are still there or you are entering, they would know that you have been here because of your fragrance. Now, Solomon says that a good name is way more precious than an expensive perfume. What this means is that in spaces where you have been, there is a fragrance of your name that remains long-lasting way after you are born. People are able to still tell that you were here. When you can no longer enter into certain rooms to defend and to speak for yourself, there is a fragrance of a good name that you've left behind that will speak for you in the absence of your physical being, but because of your name will speak for you in rooms where you are discussed and you are unable to speak for yourself. Then it says that the day of death is even better than the day of birth. Now, what this means to the privileged child that is born into a family, perhaps with a good name, with all things ideal and good wealth that they inherit, it means that the circumstances under which you are born are far less important than the circumstances under which you die. In other words, the name you receive is less important, far less important than the name you leave behind. In other words, it's telling us that a name is built over time as you live life than being given and at birth. So in other words, how we live our lives is more important than the families into which we are born. The names we leave behind are far more important than the names we are given. And this is in essence and in context of the people that we are and the people that we have become, our value systems and the principles in which and through which and by which we have lived. When we look at things this way, then we can appreciate that this life that we live in, it's not about just the family where you come from, but the person you are becoming in the life that you are living. There are many young and people who have become arrogant because of the names that they carry and the families into which they are born. Particularly also as we face certain dynamics as well from imbalances of life, whether by societal pressure or inheritance and historical issues that we are now trying to survive as a result of our past that may be disadvantaging, whether certain groups or races, it doesn't so much matter the circumstances under which you are born more than the person you are becoming as you live the life that you are living. Sometimes the victim mentality doesn't help, and sometimes the superiority mindset also does not help. Listen to Solomon when he speaks of the paradox and the impact of societal perceptions that can lead to foolishness as a result of what people think of themselves. In the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 13 up to verse 16, I will paraphrase. It speaks of a small city that only had a few men, and this small city is surrounded and it is being attacked by a great king. And this great king then surrounds them and puts hedges around this city and closes them in and attacks them. But in that small city, among the few men of that city, there is found one wise man who was even poor. So we have a poor wise man within a small city, surrounded and hedged and closed in by a great king with a great army and great weapons, therefore with great might and strength. But then this verse records, but that poor wise man saved that city through his wisdom. And Solomon says, when I observed, this is what I appreciated. And he says, wisdom is far more precious than strength and power. Wisdom is to be appreciated more than having power and strength. In fact, the book of Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 23 and 24, it says, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. Let not the rich man glory in his riches. Let not the mighty man glory in his might, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that I am the Lord, and I know and understand the judgments of God and his righteousness. So when we live life, be careful that you trust in your own flesh, in your own strength. Rather, bank on wisdom from above. When we look at life that way, then we will understand that strength and power can be outweighed and outsmarted by the wisdom of the poor. That is why we even have in the Bible stories of the likes of David and Goliath, where Goliath is stoned to death with a sword and a shield and a helmet, a whole armor, and yet he is killed by one who came with stones and a sling. So with wisdom, we can take down giants. With wisdom, we can survive against great kings. With wisdom, we can come out of spaces where we are hedged in, closed in. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say systems may be working against you to succeed. Life may be disadvantaging you. You may be born into a disadvantaged family. But I want to say to you, with a good name and wisdom, you can be great. Let's consider how the world looks at things. There is this trend of personal branding. And let's take that mindset just in a highlight and a nutshell. Nothing against personal branding, but I want to look at it in a toxic and a negative context that it is now starting to create, particularly in the social media space, where this personal branding is a space where people live a lie, where they create of themselves something greater than who they truly and really are. And the book of Colossians says in chapter 6, a man who thinks himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. So be careful that which you claim to be in terms of your personal brand is not a facade and something that is up in the sky, where if people come close to you, they actually realize that there is nothing here, where you are able to advise people how to live their lives and how to do things in a certain way in order for them to succeed, but you yourself do not take and cannot be proof to that which you are teaching. It is important that the personal branding mindset, as we see it quite often in many people's lives and brands that they have built, that actually that which we see in the social media profiles is far from the truth in terms of who they are and the lives that they live. When you look at things and you look at what the Bible is saying about building a good name, it is all about character. It is all about who you are. It is all about who you are becoming as you do things you ought to do in this life. We are about who we are in essence, the heart, the mind, the character, the conduct, and the behavior. It's important that when we approach life, we must make sure that the brand is in the good name, not some profile that we have polished for everybody to see. Back to the story of the poor wise man, it really means that we live in a space where society does not care about wisdom more than they care about what a person has. It is rather an unfortunate state of circumstances where people prefer people who've got things than people in terms of who they are in the weight of their character. A good name is with wisdom, not with what you have. But here is also what it says on the extreme. It's also trying to build a balance to say there's a lot that diminishes in terms of your influence when you continue to live in poverty. So there is value in pursuing wealth and creation of a legacy from a wealth point of view. Your influence is expanded as a result of wealth, and you are able to make much more impact and difference in life and in society if you have an established growth financially and in terms of your personal development. So wisdom is not to be over-glorified as something that is to remain in our poverty. But we, in our wisdom, should work our way out of poverty. That is rather what Solomon is trying to bring to the balance. I would like to leave you then with some questions that perhaps you should ask yourself. What name are you building? Maybe, what name did you receive? What name are you building? What name will you leave behind? Some of us, we've received good names, meaning from where we come from. In my culture, there's two things I'd like to share with you. One, when you are misbehaving in the community, they would ask, whose child is this? Because then they would associate your behavior with where you come from. But also when you do well, they would also ask, whose child is this? Because then they would associate your good conduct with where you come from. Also, another example from a cultural perspective, I'm Xhosa, and in our culture there is coming a time when boys, as they become men, are taken and are removed from society, and they are placed in the mountain in solitude as they transition from boyhood to manhood. In that transition, they are masked such that they cannot be identified, and they are given a different name that is different from that which is from their society. And there they are broken down in their mindset and even character, and they are taught again to relearn basic principles and value systems, such that when they come back, even the clothes they used to wear, they wear them no more. The dressing code and style of dress, they no longer dress in that manner. The manner of speech, There's certain ways they are no longer allowed to speak. And there is a conduct that is expected of them because they are men. And they are also taught certain skills in terms of their hands when they are there. So in other words, when they are there, they are reshaped to know how to use their hands, reshaped to know how to use their mind responsibly, reshaped to know how to focus their hearts and passion on things that matter. When they are back in society, then they are expected to behave and to conduct themselves in certain ways and in a certain manner. As a result, there's even a saying that says a man is known by his actions and by his conduct. So as I leave you, what name have you received? What name are you building? And what name will you leave behind? In this life, we learn from this teaching that a name is built over a lifetime. When we are gone, it is the fragrance of our name that remains. When it is sweet, it is going to remain behind long after to be remembered. And may God help us to build good names for ourselves, to build a long-lasting impact. Though we may have monumental legacies from a wealth creation point of view that we can create, but let a good name far exceed the wealth that we are creating. Let a good name far exceed that which we leave behind for our children. Let them be born after a name of great men and women, that they can be proud when they say and they ask them, "Who are you?" They can say, "I am the son of," because they are proud of the name they have received. May God be with you, bless the work of your hands, clear your mind and give you wisdom, passion in your heart in everything that you do, as you live your life to leave an impactful and good name behind you. God bless you.